The road was wide and red with August heat, the dust lifting off it like old spirits too tired to haunt. Clara Belle walked it barefoot, her boots left behind 3 towns ago, her pride somewhere farther back. One hand clutched her sister's, Mabel Rose, 5 years old and dragging a threadbare rag doll through gravel and weeds. The girl didn't cry, not anymore. Her tears had dried with their father's last breath that morning. The scent of dried mesquite mixed with the sharp sweetness of rotting peaches from a broken cart on the roadside. Mabel's lips were cracked, her cheeks striped with dirt and sun. Clara shifted the sack over her shoulder, its meager contents a dress too small, a book with the spine split open, and a tin comb with 3 teeth left. They reached the town of Eagle Hollow by twilight, the sun casting long gold ribbons across the wooden porches. A bell rang from the chapel, soft and mournful. Clara thought it cruel that the world still sounded beautiful. She guided Mabel up the stone steps of the church, knocking once before a tall woman in a calico bonnet cracked the door. Clara dipped her head. "Please, ma'am, our daddy died this morning. We ain't got nowhere. Could we maybe sleep near the pews?" The woman's face did not soften. "That child yours." Clara hesitated. "She's mine to carry." "That's not what I asked. She's my sister." Folks say you ran out on a good man. You think God's house'll welcome shame without penance." Clara nodded once, a short nod like swallowing fire. "Thank you for your time, ma'am." She led Mabel away, her spine stiff despite the ache running through it. Behind them, the door shut with finality. They passed a group of women drawing water. One of them cupped her hand to the other's ear. "That's the bride who ran from Silas Boone. Left him at the altar like he was a dog." Another smirked. "Bet she's come back for seconds now that her belly's empty." Clara didn't turn. She'd grown used to barbs delivered behind fans and parasols. But this one stuck deeper because it was partly true. Her stomach had been hollow for days, her pride chewed through and spat out. The town square gave way to open prairie again, and in the distance sat the Boone estate, a wide, low house with a sloped tin roof and acres of land that shimmered in the fading light. She had ridden up to that house once, nervous in borrowed lace. Silas Boone had stood in the doorway then, fat and quiet, his eyes more tender than she'd expected. She'd taken one look at the way the porch groaned beneath his boots and decided she couldn't do it. She ran before the vows, while the preacher was still thumbing through his verses. She remembered the sound of her dress tearing on a nail. How Silas never chased her. Now, Clara reached the same gate. Older, paint peeled back, but the latch untouched. It swung open without resistance. Mabel's hand trembled in hers. "We'll just ask for the barn," Clara whispered. "He don't owe us anything more." The house had no light in the windows, only the pink and blue blush of dusk reflecting off the glass. She knocked once. The door creaked open, and there he stood. Silas Boone hadn't changed much. Still broad as the barn door, cheeks ruddy, arms thick as flour sacks. But his eyes, that same softness, like creek water under a willow. Clara swallowed the knot in her throat. "Our daddy passed this morning. We've got nowhere to go. I was wondering, maybe the barn." He looked at her, long and slow. Then his gaze dropped to Mabel. "You hungry?" She didn't answer. He stepped back, and with a quiet voice said, "Welcome home." Clara's breath hitched. He turned and walked toward the kitchen without waiting for a reply. She led Mabel inside, the floorboards humming under her step. Everything was clean, swept, orderly, a space that looked lived in but not lonely. They followed him to the barn anyway, not trusting kindness that came so easy. Silas laid out a blanket on hay that smelled like summer and cinnamon. He brought them bread, smoked meat, a jug of well water. Said nothing. Later, as the stars spread out above the rafters, Clara sat upright, while Mabel slept beside her, curled like a field mouse. Silas returned, silent again, carrying a lantern and a small wooden box. He placed them gently by her side. When his hand brushed hers, she didn't pull away, but she didn't lean in either. "You can carve, if you like," he murmured, the first thing he'd said in hours. "Helps with restless hands." "I don't know how," she said quietly. He shrugged. "That's how you start." And then he left. The barn held its breath after he was gone. The stars blinked through the slats. Clara picked up the block of wood and the little blade tucked inside. Her fingers trembled. She thought of the letters her mother had written, the ones she never answered. The line she remembered most. Asterisk, that man's heart is big. Don't mistake his size for his spirit. Asterisk. She began to carve nothing in particular. Just motion. Just beginning. At sunrise, Mabel woke with a smile and a rasp in her throat. Clara braided her hair and walked her to the town well. The women were still there. One tossed dishwater that splashed near Clara's feet. Didn't think you'd be back so soon, one said. Not back, Clara replied, voice low. Just passing through. You're welcome to keep passing. She didn't speak again. Mabel handed her a yellow flower, plucked from somewhere brave. Clara placed it behind her sister's ear and took her hand. Later that morning, Boone rode up in his wagon. He stopped beside them and handed Clara an apple. She stared at it, then at him. You don't owe me kindness, she said. Don't owe you nothing, he replied. But the child looks hungry. Mabel reached for the apple. Clara let her take it. Want to ride back? Boone asked. Clara looked down the road. I'll walk. Mabel climbed into the wagon before Clara could stop her. The girl waved happily. Boone said nothing more. He took the reins and waited. Clara walked behind them, boots scuffing up red dust. That evening, Boone sat on the porch with a second knife in his hand. Clara hovered near the edge of the steps. I don't know how to thank you, she murmured. He looked straight ahead, not at her. You don't need to. I made mistakes. We all do. She sat beside him. Mabel was chasing a chicken in the yard, giggling in a hoarse, tired voice. The sun was low, bathing everything in brass and hush. Clara took the block of wood from her pocket. She held it in both hands like it might sprout wings. Boone offered her the second knife. I don't even know what I'm carving, she said. He smiled barely. You will. Just then, hoofbeats pounded down the road, quick and urgent. A figure in a red, traveling dress rode into the yard, dust billowing behind. Clara stood, heart leaping to her throat. The rider swung down and pulled off her gloves. Evelyn. Clara breathed. Her sister's eyes gleamed with something cruel. Well, she said, voice sharp as glass, I heard you finally came crawling back. The chicken clucked once and fled the yard. Evelyn dismounted like she'd done it her whole life, even though Clara knew she hadn't ridden in years. The red traveling dress shimmered in the gold of the setting sun, too fine for prairie dirt, too clean for this life. Her boots crunched gravel as she approached, chin lifted, eyes sweeping over the porch, the barn, the girl chasing chickens, and finally Clara, like inspecting damage to a family name. I see you've made yourself comfortable, Evelyn said, tone velvet in judgment. And still no ring. Clara's lips parted, then closed. She hadn't seen her sister in over a year. Not since the letter came offering Clara to Silas Boone. Not since Evelyn had pushed that opportunity like a golden rope thrown to a drowning girl. Evelyn had called it salvation. Clara had called it being sold. I'm not staying long, Clara said quietly. Boone stood behind her, one step down, hands at his sides like weighty anchors. He hadn't moved since Evelyn arrived. Now, he nodded once in greeting. Miss Rose. She turned to him, her smile like a blade wrapped in lace. Mr. Boone, I came to set things right. My sister, well, she's always been impulsive. She ran from duty. I've come to make amends for her embarrassment by honoring the contract myself. Silas didn't flinch, didn't blink. There is no contract anymore. But your name is still good, Evelyn said, voice too smooth. You need a wife, a household. And clearly this arrangement is bound to bring more gossip. Clara stared at the boards beneath her feet. Her hands trembled at her sides. She remembered the way her mother once warned her. Asterisk, your sister smiles when she strikes. Asterisk, I don't need someone to carry my name, Boone said simply. Not out of guilt. Evelyn's smile faltered, just a crack. You'd choose her? After what she did? After she humiliated you in front of half the county? She came back, he said, and asked for nothing. Evelyn's breath hitched. Her cheeks flared with heat. You think that makes her noble? I think it makes her brave. Clara didn't look up, but she felt something shift in the air, like a storm deciding not to break. Evelyn turned on her heel and mounted her horse again. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "The town already talks. When the church hears you're housing a fallen girl and her bastard child." Clara's head snapped up. "Don't you dare call her that." "Then marry him," Evelyn spat. "Be the thing you ran from." Clara stared at her sister. "Maybe I will." Evelyn's horse kicked dust as she turned and galloped back toward town. Silence settled thick as wool. Boone exhaled slowly. Mabel clapped from the yard, unaware of anything but the chase of chickens. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The barn felt too small. She rose and stood under the cottonwood tree, the moonlight silvering the scar on her wrist from the fence post she'd once scraped it on. Boone found her there, silent as ever, carrying a tin cup of coffee. "I didn't ask you to defend me," she murmured. "I know. I was cruel to you. Once. You were scared." She turned to face him. His silhouette was soft at the edges, as though the night itself was trying to cradle him. "Why are you kind to me?" "Because kindness isn't a trade." She took the cup from his hands. Their fingers brushed, not accidentally. In the morning, Mabel didn't rise. Her face was hot, her breaths too fast. She cried without sound, clutching her belly. Clara panicked, holding her close, whispering her name like a prayer too late. Boone didn't hesitate. He lifted the child into his arms and carried her to the main house. Granny Alma was fetched from the edge of town, an old Cherokee midwife with creased eyes and fingers like wind-sculpted bark. The women in town called her a heathen, but Boone trusted her word more than theirs. Alma crushed roots, boiled herbs, and hummed low songs that seemed older than the land. Clara sat by the bed while Mabel slept in sweat-soaked sheets, the fever finally breaking by dusk. Alma packed her bag and touched Clara's shoulder gently. "Love don't always look the way folks expect," she said. "Sometimes it's the man who sweeps the barn every day, waiting for someone who might not come back." When Alma left, Clara wandered the house, touching corners and windowsills. She found Boone in the kitchen, cleaning a plate. He looked up, and something passed between them, unspoken but thick as honey. "She'll be all right," he said. Clara nodded. "Thank you for everything." He paused, drying his hands. "You want to stay?" She looked out the window. "I don't know how to be good." He half smiled. "You already are. You just forgot." She opened her mouth, then closed it, left the room in silence. The next Sunday, the town gathered for church. Clara stayed home, brushing Mabel's hair and pretending things could be normal. Then came the knock. Outside, half the congregation stood, Evelyn among them, her Bible clutched to her chest like a shield. The preacher's wife sneered. "You've made a mockery of this community." Boone stepped onto the porch. "How so?" "You house a woman of shame," one man growled, "and her illegitimate child. It's scandalous." "She's my guest," Boone said, voice calm. "She's not your wife," Evelyn snapped. "And people are saying—" "Let them say," he said. She came back. "I opened my door. That's between me and my God." The silence stretched, brittle and raw. Clara stood inside, Mabel clinging to her skirt, watching from the shadows. Boone raised his voice, not loud but steady. "I waited for her. I swept that barn every day, hoping maybe she'd find her way again. When she did, I didn't ask for why. I just gave thanks." Someone in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Another lowered her eyes. Evelyn's face darkened. "So you choose her over decency?" "I choose the one who came back," Boone said. One by one, the crowd peeled away, muttering but leaving. Evelyn stood frozen, teeth clenched, before finally turning and stalking away, her heels snapping like gunshots. Boone stepped back inside. Claire was still at the window. "I didn't earn that," she whispered. "You don't earn grace," he said. "You just accept it." That evening, under a sky softened by stars, Clara sat on the porch carving the block of wood he'd given her. Boone came beside her, offering no words, just presence. She handed him the half-finished carving. It looked like a bird, wings awkward but reaching. "Took me long enough," she said. He nodded. "It's still flying." She looked over at him, and for the first time, saw not the man she'd once feared marrying, but the man who had waited quietly, patiently, offering no chains. Only a place to land. Mabel called from the yard, pointing to something beyond the fence, a figure on horseback, still as stone. Claire squinted, heart skipping. The rider didn't move, but they were watching, and they hadn't come alone.